a major problem. And Skip, condescending, excuse me, talking down to grown men and this whole idea that, I get it, Big Ben's your quarterback. If you wanted to make that point, he's won you a couple Super Bowls. He's the quarterback, the leader of the team. I'm buying into all that. But the notion that he's the man in the room and the other 52 players are kids, and especially the condescending tone about it, is also one of those things you got to be really careful with, just racially. When you have a league that's 70% black and you're basically telling everybody, follow the big white quarterback, he's the guy. And I'm going to say this.
What did Antonio say last week? He said Ben operates with an owner mentality,
right,
which could
exactly.
smack of what you're saying.
Which also fits in with what Colbert said. And I think this would rub a lot of people the wrong way. You have grown men in that locker room with wives and kids and families and whatnot, and to say that they're kids compared to them. And then this is the other thing. If you're going to use Ben as the example, make sure he's without fault and he's not. Is Ben Roethlisberger the best guy to be the leader and example, especially when you talk about some of the off-the-field stuff that's going on?
Example, no, but leader I can argue. But go ahead.
But I'm saying when you have
I
that,
got it.
if you, I said this on the radio yesterday. I don't believe any way that you would hear that. Here's a compliment for Tom Brady and the Patriots, that would ever come out, even though you might even be able to get away with it with Tom Brady, with all the winning, all the success, and all the, you know what I mean, that's gone on over all these years. I don't believe they would do that and put that out there the way that they have. And we know now.
It's funny, in New England, there's no real GM because Belichick he wears both hats, really. But go ahead.
Yeah, and the other part is, when you think about this, now for all the people who just want to bash AB and say Antonio Brown, now you might have a reason why when you look at this and say, you don't know what Ben said to him or what tone or how it was done to where he was offended. And I know people say, well, you should just look past it and play football and be a man and all that other stuff. But now there's a little peek into the Steelers and how they operate, and maybe he has a case. Maybe there's more examples and other stuff. I'm not saying AB is without fault and he hasn't done some things that you wish he wouldn't have done because he's such a great player.
That was an understatement.
No, I'm just saying. Yep. But I do think that Kevin Colbert had, if they're not going to be a playoff team, Skip, because they're going to lose Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown, they might have a hard time putting together a team after these comments and after the way the players might feel about Ben and where he's viewed as far as management. So I do have a big problem with it, and I think players have a right to push back.
By the way, there have been so many negative comments come out of that locker room over the last 2 years. This ranks about 8th to me. That's how bad it's been. That's how in disarray, that's how chaotic that locker room has become. In part, I find these comments sad on a bigger picture level because I remain a big Mike Tomlin fan. I've always said on national TV for years, if I could play in the NFL, I'd want to play for that guy because every time I watch him post-game or even pre-game, he inspires me. I want to play. I want to suit up for him. But he lost control of his locker room. In part, these Kevin Colbert comments became an indictment of Mike Tomlin because he should be the final voice in the locker room. He should be the buck stops with the head coach, and it hasn't stopped with the head coach, and it's almost like a desperate plea to the locker room. Okay, I'm going to anoint a new leader who should have been a leader all along, our quarterback. And I got to tell you, I get these were harsh comments. They were over-strong comments. They became shrill. They became between the lines, explosive and controversial, and for all the reasons you just brought up. But the point of them, the principle of them, the bottom line of them was all solid to me. It all made sense to me because the first statement he made was he's the elder statesman. Well, he is the elder statesman because he's the only one left from the last Super Bowl team, right? And Ben has played in 3 and won 2. He has not been a choir boy off the field. And we know about the 2 major incidents, for one of which he got suspended, right? And so you You're good on that one. I give you all those points. But I think it's a desperate plea to everyone else in the locker room when he's talking about he's got 52 kids under him. He means in football years that they just don't have the experience that Ben has had on the biggest stage. Nobody else has played in a Super Bowl. And his point was, when you do get other guys playing in the Super Bowl, then they can say, it's my turn to start to lead this team. But they don't have anybody who even qualifies as a leader on this team because they're younger and less decorated than the quarterback.
I think you could have said it in a better way, and I think that the way he said it, you read more into it. Just the idea that somebody's a kid because they didn't win a Super Bowl or Ben is the last guy.
Just doing it on experience.
You know what I mean? Yeah. It could have been said differently, and I'm just saying as far as experience, but to say that you should just listen to Ben no matter what because he was the last guy
Rob,
from a Super Bowl
if you look hard over the last 2 years, a lot of players in that locker room have acted like kids, starting with Antonio.
Well, and that might be coaching, though, but that doesn't mean that there aren't grown men in there. And for Kevin Colbert to act as if there aren't any grown men just because a handful skip, and I'll give you that. But that doesn't mean there aren't veterans in there who are grown men who are going to work every day and trying to make, trying to win something. They were 6-2 last year. They were 6-2 on their way. Did Ben lead them to the playoffs?
No, but it was a deeply troubled football
It was.
team.
There's a lot of things.
They did have a big late season win against New England. Remember that?
Yeah, but that was the one where Tom Brady couldn't even throw the ball out of bounds.
Couldn't throw the ball out of bounds. Yeah.
Don't you remember that bad pick?
Who won the Super Bowl? I forget.
Oh, I remember.
Who won?
The Patriots defense.
Remind Rob
the Patriots defense. Did they win the game against the Chargers and at the Chiefs? That's all.
Forget it. Yeah, that's
different story.
I have covered this league, maybe too long, but I've covered this league since the 70s. Every team I've ever covered, by definition, the quarterback was the leader of the football team. And I think Kevin Colbert is saying, why don't we get back to basics here? That guy, he has played in 3 Super Bowls. Shouldn't he be the final say in our locker room if the coach can't? And I go all the way back to the old Rams of the 70s here, the Chuck Knox Rams. James Shaq Harris was the quarterback. He was the first black quarterback who was a starter, like a consistent starter. I got to know James, had the pleasure, the honor of knowing him, and he became the leader and the voice of that football team that was obviously a pretty white football team, but he took over. God bless him, because you want to talk about blazing a trail, but he played the premier position. Then Cowboys, Roger Staubach. You don't think he was the final say in that locker room? And then Troy Aikman, and I can just go on and on to all the teams that I've covered.
No, I understand when you talk about that position, but I just think the tone of those comments, they rub me the wrong way, and I'm not surprised that other veterans weren't rubbed the wrong way. That people should blindly lead Ben Roethlisberger no matter what, and just accept what he says and the criticism that he gives out because he last played in the Super Bowl. I don't know if that's the case. How long ago was that Super Bowl? You always talk about Aaron Rodgers. How long ago was that? So does that expire? Does he get that for life if he hasn't been to a Super Bowl in 10 years or 8 years or whatever it's been?
Well, all I know, he did play in 3 of them, and he won 2 of them, and you can't say that for anybody else in that locker room.
I get it.
And this team is in desperate mode right now because I still think it's much more talented than you're giving it credit for. And I do think that no Le'Veon, no Antonio, if in fact that happens, will be addition by subtraction. The team is still talented enough to win this division and at least be a playoff team. Do I think they can compete for the championship or the AFC title? No, I do not think they can. But Juju Smith-Schuster is big time.
Yeah, will he be the same, though? And I'm not knocking him. Will he be the same without AB on the field is what I'm asking you, Skip. Will they play differently?
Love Juju.
I love James Washington at Oklahoma State, and he was just a rookie last year, and he took a public beating occasionally from Roethlisberger, who criticized him pretty heavily. I think he'll rise and shine, and you'll start saying, wow, he can run by people.
So nobody can criticize Roethlisberger in his play or when he does bad stuff. Because according to Colbert, just Roethlisberger is the voice.
But again, by definition, that's been the unwritten rule in this league for years. Nobody criticizes the quarterback because it's the hardest position to play in sports. It's the leadership position. So, yeah, if you take shots at the quarterback, your job's probably in jeopardy.
I feel like you add this to the list of the problems surrounding this organization. I mean, how much have we talked about them all year? I mean, they have been in the news more than anyone else.
All or almost all negative.
It feels
Everything's
like
always
it's been
controversial.
negative, always.